What do you think about the idea of transforming trash into clean energy, where food scraps or tires or waste can be recycled and where you can take that energy and that power and create clean energy and sell it back into the grid? It's a concept, it's a thing that can be done. And I'm going to be talking to Eden Energy and their process and their global mission to reduce waste everywhere. Coming up next. Hi, Jonathan Appel of Eden Energy. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Maria. Very excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to learn about your process. I mean, it's really cool. It's groundbreaking, and it's all about transforming waste into power.
Yeah.
So let's describe the process, a little bit for me and the listeners, and get us up to date on what your company's up to.
Well, there are a lot of technologies out there that can turn waste into energy, right? And we're all familiar with them, even if we're not sure we are, right? A landfill turns waste into energy by allowing it to break down, and we can capture that methane, right? Incineration burns it, captures that heat energy, turns it into steam, and makes electricity that way. So there's always been waste to energy, but they've never been efficient. They've never been viable. And my family and I have been working for the past 27 years to bring a technology to the world that is essentially a reverse engineering of Mother Nature on how she makes oil. So the earth had to make oil somehow, right? And the way that happens is organic material goes underneath the surface of the earth, gets exposed to immense heat, right, from the center of the earth, and a lot of pressure. And over time, those carbon bonds break and create a hydrocarbon, right? All oil is a carbon molecule with hydrogens attached to it. That's all oil is. It's very simple in chemistry, right? Nothing complicated. What we're able to do is we're able to take those carbon chains, right? Use sugar as an example, C6H12O6, right? And we're able to break off all those oxygens and be what's left over of a carbon chain, right? So out of sugar, you would make a lot of methane and ethane, which are your C1s, which means one carbon, and C2s, which means two carbon, right? Your methane and your ethane, which are natural gases. So our technology can take all carbon-based compounds and convert them into clean-burning, carbon-neutral hydrocarbons, biochar, which is essentially a carbon material, very popular in many industries right now, and a liquid fertilizer. So we have no waste, no byproducts. It's a complete recycling system, which was based on, of course, Mother Nature.
Right. That is so cool. Well, how did you come up with the idea? I know you're dipping back into history a little bit here, but
Yep.
Who had the concept? Like, where would the original idea come from?
So my father is the original inventor of what we call our Eden Energy process today. It's had many iterations over the years, and he was very well known, was in Discover Magazine, Discovery Channel. I mean, in the early 2000s, my father was everywhere. But there was a scientist who was looking at different ways of breaking down waste. And there was a process that this guy was proposing called thermal depolymerization. And that is now one of the steps of our process, but you need more, right? You have to add more steps to make a viable product, because thermal depolymerization is a great first step, but the products out of thermal depol aren't the greatest fuels and the greatest efficiency. So by adding in multiple steps, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, you're able to get a much higher efficiency and much more viable products. So my father saw this idea to use thermal depol. And then over the next couple decades, we built and expanded on that and created a system that is extremely energy efficient. We'll talk about that, but also has no waste, no byproducts, and the cleanest burning fuels you can possibly imagine.
So what was your type of audience for this type of technology?
Sure. So right now, we're going to be building systems of all sizes and scales, from 2 tons per day all the way up to thousands of tons per day, right? So we can really fit any niche of waste producers. The people that we're targeting right now are obviously municipalities, right? The people who are already collecting the garbage, big waste producers, right? Campuses, cruise ships, large-scale apartment buildings, food processing facilities, anywhere that you're producing a significant amount. waste. One of our partners in the very early days was Conagra Foods, who owned Butterball Turkey, those big frozen turkeys that everybody gets on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
And their one facility that they had in Carthage, Missouri, where we were collecting the waste from, was producing over 200 tons a day of offal waste, right? The parts of the turkey that we don't really typically use, the blood, the guts, the bones, the feathers, things like that, right? So that's what we were turning into fuel in the early days. Our technology is much more advanced, and now we can take everything from plastics to tires to used motor oil to food waste to human waste. Yes, I'm saying poop in a very nice way, but we can process it all simultaneously and create immensely viable products.
I read earlier on your website how municipalities can use this technology to take pharmaceuticals out of the water, I guess, which was really interesting. This process is clean.
It would, to take it out of the lakes and rivers and estuaries right now would be very difficult. There's the way we can solve the issue is by stopping new materials from going into the environment, right? So we can process them and break them down to where they're no longer recognizable as the pharmaceutical, right? They become the simplest form, right? If there's sodium inside your pill, you're going to be left with a sodium ion or a sodium salt inside of our system, right? So we break those down. But the beautiful thing is the way you get rid of pollution is one of my favorite old sayings. The solution to pollution is dilution, right? So after a long enough time, all the pharmaceuticals that are currently in the environment will dissipate and they really won't be of effect anymore as long as we turn off the tap, so to speak, right? We stop introducing new pharmaceuticals so we're able to allow the old ones to dissipate.
Now, explain to me, you have 8 stages. By the way, I love your social media. It's very educational based, your Instagram and all of those channels. But you explain the 8 stages, of the process.
Sure.
Do you want to briefly go over those 8 with us?
And definitely what separates us apart. So to just give some perspective, there's another well-known waste energy technology called pyrolysis. And pyrolysis is essentially superheating material to the point where the bonds break, and you create a fuel that really isn't that high a quality, loaded with a lot of bad actors, mercury, VOCs, PFAs, those types of compounds. And it's only 3 stages, right? You have raw material preparation, where you dry and grind up the material. Then you have the pyrolysis process, and then you have power generation, cleanup. You have the post-processing stage, right? For us, we have 8 stages: raw material preparation, thermal depolymerization, hydrolysis, physical separations, thermal cracking, concentrations, processing, and then power generation, right? So it's a much more detailed and intricate process, but because of how we use the process and we use water, we're able to have amazing energy efficiencies. So all we do in the first stage is we make the materials, right? Raw material prep is just grinding the particulates so we can flow them through the machine. Thermal depol is low pressure, low temperature, using steam to heat the material, and we separate the organic and inorganic material. So any glass that got in there, we're able to remove from the process. It doesn't harm the process, but it doesn't convert. It just kind of ends up in the biochar. Any metals, things like that. The next process is hydrolysis. For that, I recommend reading the blog on our post called The Magic of Water, because a lot of really amazing stuff happens. I won't get into too much today, but you break down all pathogens, you oxidize metals, and you really create an immensely clean product. From there, we put it through centrifuges where we remove as much of the water as we can physically, and then we go into what's called a thermal cracker, where we then heat the materials and break the bonds and create our fuels. Everything is under pressure, so they're not that safe to build at home unless you're an expert in pressure vessels. So if people do want to do it, that we have to make sure they do it correctly, right? You can't take shortcuts here and just build this at home. You need real pressure stamped vessels so you know they're correct. So then we make the fuels. The next step is concentration, where we take all the water from the process, which is loaded with potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, all these great minerals for fertilization, including sulfur and things like that. And we concentrate that down. We simply evaporate it off and make a liquid fertilizer. And then you're left over with water, right? So at this point, you've now created your fuel gas, your natural gas, your biochar, all of which come out of the thermal cracker, and your liquid fertilizer, which comes out of the concentrate. So then the fuels are then simply filtered, removing any carbon particulate that's in them, and then we use them in power generation. So that is our process, right? So we have 3 full reactions, whereas pyrolysis has 1. And 2 of ours are reactions that take place with water. And that's what really separates us apart. It's the magic of the water.
So a company that is doing this can essentially become self-generating. Can they store that power at all? Or
Absolutely. Yes,
really?
absolutely. That's a great question. Let me use Conagra Foods, the Butterball turkey example. So this plant is probably still making about 200 tons of waste a day. That
Right.
200 tons of waste a day would be fed into our system. You would create a liquid gas and a fuel gas, right? So a vapor gas. The vapor gas, probably about 30 to 40% of the gas that you create would use to power the entire machine. So now you still have about 60% of that natural gas that you can use to create electricity,
Right.
and all of the liquid fuel that you can use to make electricity. And since we use a boiler anyway, we burn all of our fuel in our steam boiler, which is very efficient, and then we fire a steam turbine to create electricity. So that single facility could probably make all the electricity it would need to power the whole facility and still have more to sell afterwards. So
So
they'd
you
be
can
able
sell
to
it back to the
power
grid, basically.
they could make all their own power now, sell back to the grid, create organic fertilizers that they can either sell back to their company or
Right.
whatever it is. And now they don't have to pay for waste disposal and they don't have to pay for electricity, all from their waste.
That's amazing. It's truly now you have a mission. Like you really are on a not only national or international, it's a global mission. Do you want us to tell
Global
us a
mission.
little bit about that? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So a few years ago, I had a spiritual experience where I was under the influence of a hallucinogen, and I had visions of myself and my wife, you actually brought her up before. She's the one who's built out all of our marketing. She's one of the co-founders here and our chief marketing officer. But I had visions of her and I walking through what I assumed was the Garden of Eden. There were huge trees all around, beams of golden light, and I just kept hearing, "Restore Eden, restore Eden." Now, growing up, my nickname for my father was God's janitor, so it couldn't have been a better opportunity that my family has been working for several decades to bring this technology to the world. And we've had great successes, but big setbacks as well, from a IPO that released the day before the market crash, a collapse of a fuel economy, and then we went to a different country only to see that country have complete economic collapse, which was unfortunate. But we've always had great success as well. And my mission has always been to leave this world a better place than when I came into it. Now we have a technology that is viable, that can actually make a difference. And the key is that people can generate a profit from it. So will allow mass adoption. It's a profitable device that can clean the world. So we'll be able to actually make a difference because people will be incentivized now to make a difference. We're able to incentivize people to clean up the planet, it drives me because it gives me knowledge knowing that I will actually be able to make a tremendous difference on this planet. And my company will be one of the driving forces behind it. It's a feeling that I can't express.
What is next for Eden Energy? What do you what's up your sleeve for the next little while?
So right now, we're just getting our first couple of large pieces of equipment sold, and we'll be constructing them over the next several months. And it's just slowly bringing this technology to the world, showing what the technology is capable of. Hopefully, within the next 20 years, there will be a major Eden Energy system in every city across the country, and hopefully soon across the planet. Because even at the point when we harness real clean energy, whether that's through hydrogen, fuel cells, nuclear, whatever the energy source of the future is, we know it's going to be something spectacular. The Eden Energy process will still always be needed because there's no way we're ever going to become a society that stops creating waste. So this is a device that gives everybody, every city, the ability to become fully circular, because now they never have to landfill a single piece of waste again. And the things that we can't process, which are metals, rocks, glass. Those are all things that can always be recycled, right? We can always recycle metal, glass can be recycled, and rocks. I mean, rocks don't damage nature, right?
Right.
So we can truly restore balance, which is one of the reasons we're all so excited.
Well, it's like that circular economy that keeps coming up, I'm finding in this podcast. It's really the way of, the future in so many ways. And a lot of countries are adopting it. And I find North America is kind of slow to adopt. Would you say something to that nature? Agree?
Yeah, I think, and of course, I've had some experiences in this ballpark where there's always a lot of what we call happy talk, right? People are
Right.
always so excited to do the next big thing. But then when it comes to having to spend a little money to get that next big thing off the ground, all of a sudden people become Tyrannosaurus Rexes and they can't reach their wealth, right? So in the US especially, we've seen there's a lot of people that talk a very big game about wanting to make a difference and wanting to heal. But when push comes to shove, a lot of times they're more bark than bite. And I think that's one of the issues that you really see here in the US. There's a lot more of that than other parts of the world. Not sure really why that is. There's a lot of theories out there, but at the end of the day, I think at some point America will really lead that charge again, and I think we can be one of the companies that helps set the tone for that because we create clean carbon neutral energy from something that pollutes. And I think just by adding that, whether it's municipalities starting to adopt, other companies seeing what we're doing and creating their own versions, I mean, we just want this world to be a better place, and that's our mission. So getting these to the world, getting them to everywhere we can, every corner of it, to ensure that waste becomes now part of the natural cycle, and that's the only mission that there is.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining me today, and wishing Eden Energy all the success in the future. I love the concept, and I can't wait to see what the coming months and years look like for you guys. Cheering you on.
Well, thank you so much, Maria. We've got some exciting things up ahead. Some really big things have started happening for the business. We're in that, as I explained to my partners, if they were writing a movie about us, we're right now in the cut scene where all the crazy things are happening. So
Awesome.
It's very exciting.
Well, that's entrepreneurship at its finest, exactly. All right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So what do you think about that? Creating fuel that is carbon neutral from something that pollutes. Love the concept. I wish Eden Energy all the best. I think it's a really neat thing that can transform so much of how businesses can turn their waste into good energy. I'm your host, Maria McGowan. Thanks for tuning in to the Reimagined Energy podcast. We'll see you next time.